Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Good evening.
Hello?
Good evening.
Storm Watch.
Snowmageddon 2.0.
Allegedly, I
Didn't
haven't.
happen.
I mean, yeah, not yet.
You know what? I probably should record, huh? We need to record this. What's playing? Oh, you got your audio on.
He's got the audio on.
Turn your audio off, man. This is a professional environment. There are 9
right.
people watching right
Is
now.
it really?
right.
Hey, Marvin.
Hey, Marvin.
He said, "Hey, Marvin." What's up, guys?
Fill the void. Fill the void.
Episode 2.
Oh, okay.
Pray and pray.
Episode 2. We're back.
We are.
It's good to be back.
What are we talking about today?
Well,
And now we're recording.
and now we're recording.
Back to the pro world.
Well,
We've
welcome-
lost 3 people in the last
That's
minute.
right.
For this is how professional we are.
Hey, welcome to live programming.
This is what it is.
That's right.
This is what live programming
That's
is.
right.
At least here at Hasty Bake.
Yep.
If you don't recognize the beautiful face that's in front of you,
Thank you.
my name. We have a celebrity. I mean, really celebrity ambassador.
Stop. Oh,
No,
ambassador.
I'm not talking about you
Oh,
or
sorry.
or
Is that a
your
thing?
mustache. Celebrity ambassador. It's a thing as of now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jay Johnson
We'll
is
start
in the
there.
house.
Jay Johnson, welcome, buddy.
We
Thank
like to
you.
say Jay is the most tagged person on Facebook.
Well,
And
we
if
like
you're-
to say that because we can statistically
we can back that up. There's
up.
analytics behind.
Correct.
Yeah, my wife will back that up every time we're watching a movie. Someone sends me a picture of an old grill, and I tell her to go pop some popcorn, and I'm
An old
explaining
grill.
to 'em-
I gotta get to this.
I'm explaining to them, what they've got and all this, and trying to hold my wife off from, getting pissed. And
I love that it's like it's no longer, and I'm not saying it's impolite, but it's no longer polite. It's like there's no comment where it's like you should think about reaching out to Jay Johnson.
Yeah.
It's just I got this old Hasty Bake. I don't know Jay Johnson.
Jay Johnson.
Just throw
Yep.
it out there, and like nine tags later, Jay's like, apparently I need to look at something.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then he weighs in, and he's right because.
and then there'll be something about that grill that'll throw me off,
And now you're down the rabbit hole
and
for
then
an
I'm
hour.
just ingrained in it, and she's like playing with my son in the back room, and the movie's
I
over.
shouldn't have
and,
deleted that picture.
I know.
We had a. We'll go into it later.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into it right now.
Yeah.
We had a picture. We were going through. So tonight, if you guys are listening for the first time and you hadn't heard kind of what the schedule is for tonight, we are talking Hasty Bake history with the in-house Hasty Bake historian, Jay Johnson. We don't pay him.
No.
We pay him in brown
Yeah.
things, liquid bourbon. But we were going through pictures, trying to back up some of the timeline that we're talking about. And I was like, that's an old picture of what the heck is that? And like Tiffany's staring at it and Zach's staring, and I'm staring at it. I'm like, is that a rotisserie? No. Is that a gas tank? Mm-hmm. Like it was a portable that had a hole cut in the front and had like this cylinder hanging from the top that had this like either a nozzle or a pipe or something that goes into it, but it was a portable. And the only thing we could figure is maybe it was a propane tank for like a propane powered portable.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I got to find now that I deleted it, I'm going to have to dig for
We'll
it.
find it. We'll find it.
It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Someone did that with a Sequoia. They turned it into a
I-
gas grill.
I have seen that.
I heard Grant had a gas
Yeah.
powered like on his porch. Like that's
Yeah, he converted to a Legacy or something.
I've
into
seen
gas.
pictures
I
of
mean,
that
we-
Sequoia.
we try to forget that piece of our
Yeah.
history.
Right.
We've gone down some dark roads.
Right.
We don't do that anymore.
Oh, we don't.
Well, when we talk in house.
Professionally.
You're behind. You're in
Professionally, we don't.
you're in the trust tree here. If you're
Right.
listening, you're in the trust tree. We have internal conversations. When we rebranded a few years ago, we said, "Do we rebrand to Hasty Bake Grills?"
Yeah.
Which is what we are on social media.
Right.
Because Hasty Bake Charcoal Grills is just a long social media name.
Yeah.
And do we officially rebrand to Hasty Bake Grills? And I was a very, very staunch proponent of, no, it is Hasty Bake Charcoal Grills, because that sets the standard from the get-go that, like, we don't veer off into a lane that isn't ours.
Yeah.
Now, when they fire me in, 3 days to 3 months or 3 years or whatever it is, then the next guy can rebrand all he wants. But as far as me being here,
Right.
we're a charcoal grill company.
Right.
Very nice.
I love it. Tonight is brought to you by 1907 OK Distilling
1907.
Bourbon. So thank you, Hunter, for
And
your sponsors.
It's also brought to you by Mucinex.
by Mucinex.
If you can't hear.
Vicks Sinex.
Yeah.
Is a big and acetaminophen,
Yeah. Yeah.
which cheers to that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, we you've gone through the ringer of Chili Bowl and NASCAR and weddings.
that's right. And all I got was this awesome sinus infection.
Yeah.
So
I've been out in the woods a few days over the last couple of weeks in 18-degree weather chasing birds.
yeah,
Worthy of that. So we've earned these stripes.
that's right.
Tonight is history night.
Yep.
So go pop some popcorn if you're not popped already. I was hoping that the weather would get people home early.
Yeah.
So we get more. We actually have quite a few people watching. It's awesome. But I honestly
what
think
we don't
that
have is weather.
what we don't
currently.
have is any weather.
Yeah.
Like that snow. I sent Zach a picture of the radar today, and it was snow and rain everywhere, and Tulsa was just this like a little white circle.
It's
just,
like we're living in
We're in a
the
bubble.
Truman Show,
yes, that's
and
exactly.
we just
what
have the dome over Tulsa.
the dome. That was a fun show. You remember that?
Yeah.
Little Amazon Prime action. I have a feeling that tonight we're actually truly very excited about this one. We like all our podcasts because we like them, but this one I think is going to get tagged and reshared and be referenced for a very long time to come because we are going to go through pretty much Hasty Bake history from World War II era through up until about the mid 80s.
Yeah.
We're going to save post mid 80s, 90s ish for when I convince our current president, Richard, to come on this podcast, which Rich is, well, he's not listening tonight. I can guarantee that.
No, he's not.
But if anyone is, you can let him know that he's apparently going to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
I texted him this week asking him a couple clarifying questions with stuff. And I said, man, we need to get you on here. And he'd been responding. And so we need to get you on the podcast. And it was, do I have crickets? I don't have. Oh, sorry, I turned it down. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I never texted with him again. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But before we go deep dive into history, I want to do a quick introduction on who is Jay Johnson and why does he not know how to spell his last name.
That's a Viking thing.
See, I feel like anyone could claim anything's a Viking thing and it
Right.
just shuts you up.
Right.
It's like, man, why is your facial hair so horrible? It's a Viking thing.
And you're like, oh,
You're like, I can't talk about it now. It's a
cool.
Viking barbecue. Is that really your barbecue team name?
That is.
Viking barbecue.
Is it really?
Full blood Norwegian.
Well, I know you're full blood Norwegian,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're in America now.
Yeah.
This Jay Johnson.
Yeah.
That's the name. That was what you did when you came over to America. You changed your name to an American looking name, but
Right.
you kept the EN part to
So do you know what the original was?
Claven.
Claven.
Yeah.
See, I don't feel like that's very non-American.
No.
And so that was to, to get a job and all that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of stuff. You wanted to,
Right. Well, you lucked out because you look whiter than some people.
Well, yeah. I
like
mean,
you get a
Norwegians are white,
a freckly
and blonde
red-haired
and,
guy over here with a nice lilt,
Right.
and you can't go by John Smith.
Yeah.
All right. So Jay Johnson, tell us who you are, what you do.
So I guess I'll say I was born in Madrid, Spain. My parents were missionaries, and
I'm already deeper than I was 3 seconds ago.
There you
we moved back to New Jersey where they lived. And when I was 13, my brother and sister wanted to go to ORU, so we moved out to ORU, to Oklahoma, to Jinx, Oklahoma, and I went to Jinx, Jinx all the way through high school, and eventually went to Spartan, graduated from Spartan, and then got on with American Airlines, have an A&P license, and I've done airframe work for 27 years at American Airlines. The last 3 or 4 years, I make art out of aircraft parts for headquarters in Dallas.
In case anyone thought that they had the best job in the world,
Yeah.
Jay just shot that notion down. So you make art
Yeah.
in a full-blown metal shop with pretty much any tool you ever need to make said art.
I have use of the whole base to make anything I need to make. So
Yeah.
it's, you just go to the machine shop and say, hey, help me design this up, and they'll make it, and go over here to the carbon fiber area, and they'll make something, and you just put it all together and design
Freaking
it.
cool.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
You posted a picture this week, I think, of some like some turbine art that
Yeah,
you've
that
done
was-
in like this in the roof.
Yeah, and the hotel, there are 2 9-footers and 2 6-footers.
It's like where you would put ceiling fans or something. Yeah, it's art.
It's
Do
the
they
inlet
turn?
of it. Yeah, they spin and they light up and everything. And
That's so cool.
yeah, they're cool. Yeah, it's in the lobby of the hotel for American Airlines.
That's so cool, man. And American Airlines has their own hotel, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's not many people can say that.
all the training.
Unless your
If you
last name's
fly in
Hilton.
for training,
I mean,
and
I
stuff
don't
like
have
that.
my own hotel, so
No, but your mustache does.
it does.
Things livid.
That's right.
So you've been an American for how long now?
About 27 years.
Okay. Uniquely qualified then to, which we'll talk about a little bit later on tonight, kind of go into the restoration process of grills and kind of deep diving into that passion project kind of thing. So pretty cool. I don't want to give away what we're going to kind of do at the end, which is, talking about Jay's story and restoration and collection and all that kind of stuff. But just real quick, like, what was your first introduction to anything Hasty Bake?
It was 1987, the summer of 1987. I had a 1980 Trans Am with the T-tops off, the mullet.
And I can hear the music.
That's
now.
right,
And
exactly.
it was probably Van Halen. And
That's what I was hearing in my head.
I was cruising through the neighborhood, and there was a garage sale, and I'm a sucker for garage sales. And I pulled over, and there was this toolbox-looking thing, and he goes, "Yeah, this is a grill." And so I bought it, took it home, and my brother was like, "Dude, those are expensive grills.
Do you remember what you paid
that.
for it?
$15.
$15.
Yep.
I
It
love
was a powder coat. It was about around a 1980
Yeah.
portable. So I've still got that grill today.
Yeah.
And I've used it, taking it to work and college for a short time, and everywhere I've moved, I've always had that grill with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, you said it was a portable, the black powder coat?
Yeah,
With the sparkles or just straight black?
It was sparkles, but I took it and had it nickel plated
Right.
and,
As one does.
loved it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, it'll last forever.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. And so at some point, and we'll kind of talk about here why, but at some point, you started a deep dive into Hasty Bake history. And what I want to focus on tonight is that history, because truthfully, no one knows Hasty Bake history, including us in-house,
Oh, for sure.
as well as Jay does. I mean, and anything we do know in-house, I would say probably half of my knowledge has come from stuff that you've communicated to me over the years or steered me in the right direction of looking at this or looking at that. I think you're probably, without making your head too big to get out of the studio, I think you're probably responsible for a lot of people not only falling in love with the brand, but knowing anything about the brand beyond it's a grill. And I think it inspires a lot of people because, like we said, you are the most tagged guy on Facebook. But one of the reasons you are is because people want to know the story behind things. It's not, I got an old grill. What year was it made? Well, they don't really care what year it was made. They want to care like what was surrounding the time that it was made, like what was Hasty Bake doing at that time, and why was it this way, and why did it look that way, and what was the precursor to it? Why is mine different than the ones that were here now? And it kind of opens up this whole thing. And as people read this on Facebook or wherever they're interacting with you, or you have an Instagram, the Hasty Bake history page on Instagram as well, right? As they interact with you, like they're picking up these little bits of knowledge. And what I see is sometimes you won't be tagged first.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone like a Jason Porter will jump in and he's like, well, yeah, that was early 80s because of X, Y, and Z. Well, he learned that because of you.
Right.
But guys are grabbing onto this and like it's igniting a passion for it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty special, man. Like it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was when I got into it, I bought another grill at a garage sale, and it was a gourmet from around 1970. It was a Home Metal Products, and the whole thing was orange, and it was in the factory kind of speckle.
Right.
And when I mean the whole thing, I mean the whole top, where today, they're always stainless, and before that they were stainless, but this one, was totally orange. And I took it to a competition, and I won first place ribs with it, and then that just,
Took off.
that piece of plastic in your hand, and you're like,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm the best in the world. I'm going to go crazy now,
You're going to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's easy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into this. Tell me about Grant Hastings, our founder, during World War II.
Yeah. So this was a story Adam Myers told me that he was in Germany and he found a chicken to cook, and he had it on a spit and was spinning that chicken for like 2 hours.
Just over a pit in the ground.
Yeah. And just something he made. And,
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to figure out a way to make the heat go around this chicken and not have to sit there and spin this chicken all day long.
Right.
So he did. He had a favorite barbecue restaurant, Tippins, I believe.
Tippins, I believe.
And
Tippins or Tiptons, one of those. They're not around anymore.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make ribs just like his favorite barbecue restaurant. So that was his dream, thing to do. So when he came back from World War II, he had a welder build his dream grill, and it was out of like a floor plate steel. It was a heavy built.
I believe I have a picture of it here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is that grill. Is that the right one? Or is that a different one?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you know, it's got a removable ash pan. When you open it up, it's got different levels to put your charcoal. It has the shape that he, you know, his big thing was he wanted the heat and smoke to rotate around the meat. So he built that grill with those angles to move the heat and smoke around the meat to cause the convection. That's what he was after. You know, that was his idea.
It's kind of cool to see, and there's a story behind that. We'll hit that story too in your collection because there's a reason we have that.
Yeah.
And no one would have that,
Right.
except if you hadn't rescued that thing. So
Right.
Yeah, that,
pretty cool. And one of the things I like to tell people too, when to back up about Grant, is one of the things. And we read this in the Grill and Grant's Way book, and there's some memoir stuff that kind of piece together. Is back in the day, in the 40s, you couldn't make barbecue in your house unless you're cooking it like like an old drum, kind of just old school backwoods style barbecue stuff, right? So what you would get at a barbecue restaurant was not really replicatable because they were cooking with these big pits in the ground and cabinet smokers and everything, and you didn't have that. So when he set out to cook ribs like his favorite barbecue restaurant, that was actually a big deal. It wasn't like, I just want to find a recipe. Like people all the time, like, how do you cook the Burnco ribs?
Right.
Okay, well, there's a recipe. And if you have the grill and you have the recipe, like you can cook ribs that are, pretty darn close to Burnco. Back then, like cooking restaurant quality ribs, like you couldn't really do that at home very easily because you weren't able to replicate what that was. So when he set out to cook ribs in his backyard, like we're starting from square one in designing this grill, right? And the cool thing about it is when you look at that grill, I'm going to pull it up one more time. When you look at this grill too, is in-ground pit smokers. This is a micro scale of exactly what they were.
Yeah.
They had a gigantic floor of charcoal in them, and there wasn't convection, fans running around. There wasn't electricity. It was a gigantic floor of charcoal with a sliding air vent, and then it was direct heat. Now it was direct heat, and they were 3 feet above the charcoal. But that's what this was. So he basically took that and shrunk it down into a mini version of it, and they probably still weren't exact, but it was way closer than anyone had gotten before. And it was closer that way for a couple different reasons. One was he put a hood on this grill, which we look at this now, and like if you saw this on Craigslist, you'd be like, well, that's a beat-to-shit grill, but that's a grill, right? If you were to show this to somebody in 1948, they'd be like, that's a spaceship. I have no idea what that is. Because a grill back then was a metal box with a grate on top. You'd throw some Kingsford charcoal in it, and you would open grill something on open flame. Like you didn't cover it with anything.
a brazier.
A brazier, right? And that's why you'll see some of the early Hasty Bake stuff. It'll say it grills, it bakes, it smokes, it braises, because that's really what it was. Is it was a brazier. You had hot coals and you flip the meat around. So the fact that he put a lid on this was completely revolutionary at the time.
And if you look just at that lid, there's 10 pieces of sheet metal.
Yeah,
that have been cut out.
Well, it's actually plate, isn't it?
It's plate, floor plate, and it's all gas welded.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a lot of work in
It's a
making
heavy
that.
mother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was just a lot of angles to deal with, and to make that grill. And there's a big, long story of the guy who made that. And, that's the grill that Grant and Gus Baker sat around and grilled ribs on, drank beer, and said, hey, we ought to start selling these.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
And the cool thing, too, is that it clearly, I mean, I don't know if that was their first shot. I think they made a couple, maybe. On
on that one, Gus Baker wanted one.
Right.
So they made him one.
Right.
And that grill actually came from Gus Baker's neighbor.
Uh-huh.
He ended up with it. And we got it from his daughter, who had it in the garage for probably the last 40 years, sitting in the garage, and she retired. And it just ended up on Facebook, and that's how we found it.
That's so cool. I love it, man. Another thing that that is pretty cool, and we'll talk about some patent designs and stuff here in a little bit, but that grill's heavy. I've seen that grill.
Yeah.
It's not a light grill by any means. So I can imagine that one of the first things that he wanted to do was like, man, how do we get this thing moved around? Because him and Gus were not going to do the shimmy shake across the backyard, like, right? So he's like, man, we should put some wheels on this thing. No brainer to us, right?
Right.
Like, if you got to move something around, put some wheels on it.
Right.
Back then, if you were to show them a metal box with wheels on it, people would be like, what is that?
Yeah.
Wheels didn't exist on a grill. So this is something that I learned and did a deep dive in when I started kind of going down my own Hasty Bake history path, is the Hasty Bake patents original. I tried to get a digital copy of them. I have them somewhere. I just couldn't find them in time for tonight. They're hard to read anyway because they're old school scans.
Yeah.
But you can actually download them from they're still on the patent website, the U.S. patent website. The original patents, you have to call out certain things in a patent. So it's not just, hey, I made a grill. It has to be like, why is this grill different than anything else that's on the market?
Right.
And if you borrowed an idea from something else to be a part of yours, so like you just drank out of a Yeti bottle, right? Like if Yeti had patented that bottle, that exact bottle that you're holding right now, but there was another type of thing that used that type of lid, you could still patent that bottle with that lid, but that lid has to be called out as a reference to the patent that the original sipper lid.
It goes back to high school. Cite your sources.
Right. Thank you. That's how you don't get failed.
That's right.
So when you look at the original Hasty Bake patents, we don't reference anything. Like we created it from the ground up. But then when you go down the rabbit hole of, okay, but who references us? And you start linking to Weber and to Charbroil and to these other brands that came up in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you realize their patents actually reference Hasty Bake. So if you go to the original Weber kettle patent, the one that has a hood on it, a lid on it, there's a nice little arrow that points to it with a patent number, and you can follow that patent reference, and it will take you back to the Hasty Bake patent.
That's so cool.
And I think the patents that most of the ones I see are on the coffin top, but there could be which one was the first?
Coffin.
Was the coffin the first one that he patented? So the hood, they referenced that hood. Well, that also had wheels on it. So you go back to the kettle, and the Weber kettle has two wheels on the sides, awkwardly shuffle it across the backyard on two wheels and not tip the thing over. And you have a reference number on the wheels, and you go back to the wheels, and it references the wheels that are on the coffin top. So it's kind of fun to see, like, even those, and no knock on those companies, like they're old companies too, but even what they created had to be referenced something that we created. So every grill that you see now on the market, every single grill you see on the market has a hood on it now.
Yeah.
Every single grill. And all of those hoods exist because we put a hood on that grill.
Yeah.
That's like a little known piece of history that's so unbelievably cool to be like, we didn't just come out with a product, we literally created an industry.
Right.
And I mean, somebody might have created it 15, 20 years down the line, who knows?
But they didn't.
But they didn't, we did.
Yeah.
So pretty neat. So he built the first model, him and Gus, and then what happened?
So after they built that, they figured they should make these and sell them. And I believe it was Gus knew a guy that could build more out of sheet metal. And so they had him build 6. And they were going to sell those, and they even took them to like a little fair, and some lady bought one of them. And right then, around that time, Gus got a job offer and said, hey, I'm going to take a couple grills with me, and I'm going to have to take this job.
Yeah.
So Grant, he started selling these grills, and he was, it was a part-time gig for a couple years till, it got momentum, and then it turned into a full-time deal.
He goes full-time in 1952, I believe.
Yeah. That's when he, actually hired employees, and
Right.
I think that summer in June he put out like 175 units.
Right.
And was gearing up he wanted to be able to put out about 500 out a month is what his shop could do.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot.
I think people think of grill companies that pump out 10, 15, 20,000 units. Well, do your math on how many that is a day. And you can do that when you're in a sweatshop in China.
I was going to say, that's not done here.
No.
Well, this is, it's like they don't kick out 1,000 Bugattis, a month.
Right.
You know,
There's
it's
a
an
reason they're rare.
Yeah, it's an
right?
exotic grill. I mean, a Hasty Bake is an exotic grill. It's
Right.
state of the art. It's a you know, it's a work of art as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know, the modern looks, the lines. I mean, it looks good on your patio.
Absolutely. About that time, 1952, we had, if I remember right, 3 models. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that was the Junior and the Country Clubber and the HB 100, the coffin top.
I got our original brochure here that I'm pulling up. This is my understanding is this is the first.
Yeah, that's the first lineup.
First lineup, the Country Clubber, the coffin top.
So the Country Clubber was the first one to actually have a mechanical lift inside it. The other 2, you would pull the coal tray out and slide it down and put it in a lower rail.
Right.
Where the Country Clubber,
and you can see that coal tray on the bottom of the Junior.
Yeah.
It kind of comes out.
the top one, it actually had the window mechanism out of a 40s Chevy. I know the handle was out of a 40s. It was like 1940 to 46 or 7 Chevy pickup.
Right.
And then if you've ever, had your door panel off on an old car, you see that big fan gear kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it has inside, and that's what, he was an inventor. I mean, he took what he,
That's right. You use what you got.
yeah, he's what you got. And he was like, hey, this will do it, So it's cool to find those when they have that crank in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have the little handle part is broke off, and it's like out of Bakelite or something, and it just doesn't last.
It's over time.
Yeah.
It got too brittle.
Yeah, so you got to go to the Chevy, restoration catalog and get that handle, to replace it.
Right. That's funny.
Why would I know that?
Because
Yeah.
you're weird, bro.
I mean, dude,
that's
dude,
how that
took a
goes.
while. Let me tell you.
Here's another vision of that coffin top there. So that had you can see there's no lift mechanism on it.
Right.
You would slide that firebox in and out from the side.
The way to tell an old coffin top from like a newer one is if you look at the time reminder, the old ones say patent pending and there's no patent number. And those will have like a rotary exhaust, and they'll have different.
And rotary exhaust is like a daisy wheel exhaust like you see on
like
a Weber kettle.
Yeah. And
Or as you see on the new Roughneck.
That's right.
there you go.
Bringing it back.
And then the later ones, they went with the traditional flat exhaust and everything.
Right.
And those will have a patent number on them. The time reminder will.
Because they
have a
finally got
patent.
the patent on them.
Right.
Yep.
So it's little clues like that guide me into finding the age and which one's older and all that kind of stuff. You look at it and you're like, that one looks just like all the others. Well, you start dicing it up, and every little nut bolt kind of thing, and then you start figuring out, what's the older one and what's the newer one, and
Right.
What's the last version of what the HB 100 was.
Right. Do you, and if you don't, it's fine. Do you know the inspiration behind him wanting to be able to raise and lower that firebox?
I would say it was, people are in the middle of grilling or smoking, and they're like, man, I got to grab that thing and pull it out. And I got this.
So they were already moving it as
hot
any one of us do
coals,
it, right?
and I want to put it up here and finish grilling something, and,
I would assume probably too, especially because it was a window crank,
yeah.
that there's probably some inspiration of him like raising and lowering the window in his
Oh, yeah.
car,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah.
well, I wonder if I could do
Yeah,
that
there's
with
something
a.
to this.
So he's probably over there like I was at 4-year-old with a toaster, taking apart everything, trying to figure out how it works and how we can mimic it. And
Right.
there's been a couple of crank mechanisms over the years as an inventor, and we'll talk a little bit about him being an inventor, that were pretty interesting. I know you brought one to us a while ago that was on a Fiesta, I think.
Yeah, on the Angus.
On the was it the one that was on the
Yeah,
Angus?
on the Angus.
And all of us are looking at it going, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, how did you? And I don't know if he machined it or if he just bought something that was on the market, but we'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
We're still playing around with it.
The cool thing about that one is the crank never goes out. It's always up against the grill the whole
Right.
time it's working. And
Well, it's like a window crank.
yeah, and it's just totally, all the action is inside there.
Right. It's pretty neat, man. So he comes out with the Country Clubber, starts expanding the line, and at some point, as this line expands, he goes crazy. And I don't know if he called Wyman or Wyman called him or something, but there is a development that happens where some stuff starts to come out that is not the normal, hey, these are the 3 grills we make.
Yeah.
So is this the Angus talk?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess let's do it then.
Let's do it.
So he I guess he was over at Wyman Metalcraft, which has been around just as long as Hasty Bake.
Right. And they're still around.
Yeah, they're still around. And they had and I've seen it at a estate sale, they had like a garden cart thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just, when I saw that, everyone thought that was like one of the Hasty Bake deals, but it was just like a garden cart. And I know you just have these feelings, and Grant walked in there one day and went, man, I want one of those garden carts with a Hasty Bake on it, So they made, do you have a picture of it up there?
Yeah, let me find it real quick. We got a couple of them.
So they made 3 of them. The first one went out
Oh,
to
that's yours. Let me find the. There. I got one with the umbrella too. You want the umbrella?
Yeah.
Let's find the umbrella.
Oh, that's a good one right there.
There you go.
So the first one went to the Mullendore Ranch, which that picture is at the Mullendore Ranch.
This one right coming up. That one right there is at the ranch. You can see the pond in the background, and the grass, and the whole thing.
And the cool story about that one is I actually called the Mullendore Ranch, which they're called something else now. But I said, hey, and I sent them a picture of my Angus, and I said, do you guys have this grill? I was reading in Grilling Grant's Way the story of these grills and everything, and they said Mullendore Ranch has one. So I was just like, well, I'll call them.
Right.
So she goes, let me talk to some of the old timers. I'll get back with you. So a couple days later, she sends me this picture, and that is Grant Hastings with his son Nord and his wife Betty at the Mullendore Ranch with that with the Angus.
Yeah.
They built another one for The Price is Right, and they built one for a Texas Oilman, and that's the one I've got.
Gotcha. And we're going to tell a fun story about how you got that and everything. Have you seen this black and I don't know what the delay is on the screen you're looking at and what I'm showing.
It's
you
just
the
a
black
few
and white
seconds. But yeah, we're looking at that one.
Is this the Price is Right one?
No.
Or is the one with the umbrella the Price is Right one?
The Price is Right one is white. It's all white.
Gotcha. Because I don't know how many of these they made, but was it 3?
Well, his book says 3. And this one right here is that we're looking at is probably my grill. My actual grill. They only made, like, the 2 that he's talking about were white. The Mullendore Ranch was white, and the Price is Right grill was white. And mine had that kind of weathered look to it, which I had to reproduce. But yeah, that was the deluxe version. So that version came with the chairs with the family's initials in the backs of the chairs and the umbrella and a cover. That was like the $3,500 version.
Right.
The Price is Right was just the cart, with the grill and everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had, here's the Angus brochure, and you can see there's the white one there, and then you got the chairs on this, and you can actually see the prices there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my actual grill in that advertisement.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's other, I don't know if you've got that other advertisement where it shows the bar and the ice maker and everything.
I don't think I have it.
It actually has the and I don't want to say the family's name, but their N was on all the parts of the grill, and that's actually in the flyer and everything.
So the cool thing about Wyman is they, and to this day, they do a lot of custom work. So when he partners with them, it's not like, hey, just build one of those things you build and put this grill on it. Like, one, it's expensive for that day, and here, this is what I want to point out, and this is not that far ahead. So this is the original Angus brochure, right? Popular model, $2,700, $3,500. Just a few years before was the OG Hasty Bake brochure that I have on the screen right now, and you'd pick up a coffin top for $129.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to spend roughly 35 times what you spend on your normal backyard grill.
So I called about 3 or 4 years before I found this grill.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Doug Bracken at Wyman Metalcraft, and I said, hey, what would it take to get one? And he goes, we've got all the molds, because it's all wrought iron with aluminum, all that gingerbread all around it. It's cast aluminum, and it's brass riveted on there.
Yeah, it's not like someone's taking wire and bending it and tacking it. Like, this is cast.
Oh yeah. And he goes, it's 30 grand for the cart. The chairs are about $1,500 a piece. They're handmade. And then you got to buy the grill and the ice maker. I was like, okay.
How much do you pay for a cup of coffee every day?
I was like, I guess I don't want to buy
I guess
one.
10 times inflation over the years is, when you look at it that way, is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
But,
And that was the price like 4 years ago.
right.
So I don't know what
Yeah,
it is
COVID
today.
happened.
Yeah.
Since I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was this,
We had a thing.
There was this demic that was a pandemic.
Yeah.
and everything tripled in price.
Yeah.
So
So it takes a 10-foot tray. You know, I haul it in a 5 by 10-foot trailer.
you haul it.
Yeah.
You guy.
Well, just
Yeah.
here. And the back of my pickup takes, all
You
the
say that
chairs
now,
and
but we're going to have a road show here in the next year or so where it's the Angus. It's going to be a whole release of feature films, like the Angus Goes to Vegas, the Angus Family Vacation. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. So he does quite a bit of expansion in the early 60s, expanding the line. There's a lot of other models that pop up. Mid-60s, something kind of special happens, though. So nowadays, and this is something that we do, you guys saw, we released like the Roughneck the last couple months.
Yep.
We had the Gourmet Pro that was released recently. Nowadays, we can pull a FLIR camera or a thermal imaging camera and put it on a grill. And I can say, this is where the heat is, and this is where the heat is not. Mm-hmm. And this is how fast the heat moves, and this is how intense it is. You couldn't do that back in the 60s. But Grant figured out something pretty special about the hood design on a Hasty Bake. Talk a little bit about that.
So, the hood on everything was canted in the front and the back because he was thinking the smoke was going from front to back because of the shape of the grill.
Right.
That's what, told the smoke what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that helps, but it was more about, the vents and where they were located. So it was going right to left. And when he discovered that, the hood design changed. And that's what it is today.
Yeah.
So I want to pull up a, back in the day, let me see if I can find the Boomer front. Yeah, that works. That's close enough. It's got the beer timer on it. You see that hood slant back.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a couple different models of grills back in the day.
That's that Country Clubber right
That's
there.
a Country Clubber.
Is the sweetest cooking grill. Dan Page has that grill, and I'm that's the one that I regret selling. That one right
The one
there.
that got away.
Oh, it is. That's the one. That's a good one right there.
I like the.
Look how thick that cutting board is.
I was just going to say, I like the 3-inch cutting board on
And
the front.
That grill, I got it from this lady. Her dad died 30 years ago, and it sat in the garage. And her husband had an old Gourmet, and he wanted to cook on that thing so bad, and she wouldn't let him. And he had to cook on his Gourmet on the back patio, and he never got to cook on that grill, never.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she called me, and I went and bought it, and I went to Burnco and bought some Wagyu beef ribs.
Uh-huh.
And they were like $75. I had no idea. I just bought a bunch of meat, and I was like, holy cow, I said $75 on 3 ribs, And I cooked them on that. I was the first cook on that grill, and dude, they turned out, it was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Regular meat tastes good on them too, just for the record.
Right.
But I would agree. Anyone that I know that has that version of that Country Clubber, Clint Pollard has one. And he goes, bro, there's just something about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what, you've told me what you think it is now is the airflow and the space and everything. But he said, he goes, if our normal grills cook amazing, this is mind-blowing amazing.
Yeah.
So it's made me want to go back and be like, how can we, capture a little bit? Because you can get stuff over the years that happen. But yeah, if you look again at that front of that Country Clubber, like that angle of the hood cants back, front and back. And one of the things I tell people when they come into our showroom for the first time is I want you to look at the hood design now, because the hood design now obviously angles left to right, and it follows the convection of that hood. Now, I know Grant talks a little bit about convection, but I don't know if Grant back in the day, if they really knew and understood what true convection was. Mainly because we understand convection is, movement of heat with airflow and all that kind of stuff. That's really easy for us to understand now because we all have, for the most part, convection ovens in our house. Now, whether we use the little convection bake button or not, That's whatever, but
Right.
it's basically a fan that's in your oven that moves the air a certain way. Well, your oven doesn't have an exhaust, so it's just trying to move heat. But we have a way to exhaust that heat and a way to actually truly ensure that that heat is not just moving around, but it's moving with intention a certain way. So when
Moving
you
with a purpose.
moving with a purpose. So when you have air coming in and it hits that heat and then it starts to cycle, and then that hood encourages that convection to continue to turn and cycle everything that's on the grill, you truly achieve like what is the ultimate convection. Well, Grant achieved it whether he realized it or not, but I think he realized it enough to know this is better than that. Right. So that's what he did. And from then on, that's one of those mile markers of Hasty Bake is like, when did the hood change direction? Right. And now we know mid-60s, and now we know why.
That's information. I believe Adam Myers told me that. I think that's where I heard that. I'm not sure.
That makes sense. I mean, he talked a little bit about it in Grant's Way when they did some redesign on it, but he didn't.
He's every time I see him, I get a lot of good stories and a lot of good information. He's he's really good.
He and if you guys haven't listened to the Adam Myers podcast from a few weeks ago, you need to go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
Adam is one of the few people kind of hanging around the circle that had, and there are people who knew Grant very well. I can't tell you how many people we hear from every week in email or phone calls or even in the grill community, and they're like, I was a friend of Grant's, or so people know him.
Right.
But Adam, from a Hasty Bake standpoint, sat at his feet for a while.
Correct.
And had the opportunity to cook for him and to hang out with him.
And to learn how to sell.
Learn how to sell from
him.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories that we can kind of glean, from that. Looking back now, man, I wish I was around in those days and could just sit there with a notepad.
Oh, yeah.
And just transcribe.
Well, and it was cool not to, unpack it the last episode, but it was cool to hear, him talk about, begrudgingly going over there to,
that was fun.
I have to do this.
Correct. Yeah. And then he's like,
that light bulb moment.
Yeah, the light, and he's like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, what am I doing?
I think it's kind of that same moment, like when you realize that your parents or your grandparents are kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like it takes you a while. Like for a long time, you think like, oh, they're old or they're out of touch or whatever, and then all of a sudden you realize like, no, they're actually pretty okay.
Right.
After the hood design in the mid-'60s, Grant decides to sell the company.
Home Metal Products, Plano, Texas.
Yep.
And that was a time, I always associate the colors in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
The green, I call it disco green. I had a really nice legacy. I think you've got it on there.
I think I do. Avocado. There you go, right there. Thanks, mice. This is and you'll see the angle of the hood change on this, and it's gotten a little bit more drastic over the years, the hood change angle. But your hood is now changed.
Right. If you see the wheels are hidden.
Yep.
They've skirted the wheels.
Well, they got a wheel down there, but you also have the stand on the left side. There's that wire bend.
Yeah, and now that shelf is not a correct shelf for that. It would have been a wooden shelf with like a little wire bracket underneath it. But it was a good. It was a good cooking grill.
Got another one here. Let's see if I can find. There's a part of the avocado years, that little Dixie Bell.
The orange was my favorite. Yeah, there you go. That one was from Hasty Brad. We were over at Hasty Brad's house, and I think Dan bought that. And it was never cooked on. That one was never. He found that in a barn in the original box.
And you can see the hood's taped and everything.
Yeah.
Notice the bottom trim piece.
Yep.
They had that bottom trim piece. And, one thing that they did later on towards the end, you started seeing the doors have like a bead roll to stiffen them up because they were making them out of thinner metal.
And that was one of the telltale signs of the Home Metal Products era.
Right.
Which will lead us in a minute to Grant reacquiring the company.
Yeah.
But they were trying to do something which, as you acquire something, you want to maximize the profit out of it. You have to try to figure out a way to reduce cost.
Right.
So their go-to was make it out of thinner gauge metal.
Yeah.
Great way to increase profit.
Yes.
Horrible way to manufacture a grill.
Yeah.
And that's what, spurred Grant, I think, to buy the company back,
Yeah.
in 74.
Yeah, they only had it for
67 to 74.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wasn't too long. Anytime you see a Colors grill, that was basically the Home Metal Products
It
era.
basically was. It
doesn't mean it's a bad grill. It's a different.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a lot of good on that orange one that I had. I loved it. And they may have started the colors before Home Metal Products. Some people say they did. It was a different shade of green. if you want to get like really nerd out on it, But
I mean, who does that?
Right.
Who would do that?
But that was definitely the time frame that the colored grills and if you open up the firebox door, a lot of times you'll see a little tag that says Home Metal Products, Plano, Texas on it.
Yeah. I usually get those are the ones when people are like, "Well, I've got a serial number here."
Those are and they've got those ones with the serial number stamped.
Yep.
And it's riveted to the top.
Yep.
And that's late '80s, early '90s. I'm restoring one right now for Bill Bond, a Rolling Ranger that has that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to know where those numbers, someone's got something that
Somebody's back to it.
We'll talk about a fire in a minute
yeah,
that might have taken that out.
Yeah.
We did have a question on here. It says, I tuned in right before the discussion was about the timer. What was the patent pending? I don't know who asked that because my screen doesn't show me, but essentially when you, before we were able to secure the patents, there's a period of time, this is still the case, when you turn in patent paperwork and you are allowed to continue to produce a product under the title patent pending.
Right.
And people do that for years.
Yeah.
Yeti still had that on their products for years
Yeah.
and years and years, patent pending. And basically, you are, I forget what the exact term, it's like a conditionally approved.
Right.
Until they basically say, you screwed something up, and then you can't use it anymore.
Well, yeah, it's got to go through all the attorneys
Right.
and, everything. You're just putting people on notice.
Yes. So when we produced the original coffin top and we filed for the patent on it, we were legally allowed to put patent pending on the, we call it the beer timer, but the time reminder
Yeah.
on that. And we call it the beer timer. And this is what I was passed down probably from you or Adam or something. But the idea was when you put your meat on, you're about to drink a couple dozen beers. So you set the time on what time you start so that when you get a couple dozen beers in, you realize, hey, it's 3 o'clock and I started this thing at 11. Okay, it's been on for 4 hours. Is that the gist of the beer timer?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you can't remember, the beer timer reminds you.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was the early models of the coffin top had patent pending on the beer timer, and then as you get later on, when we had the patent approved, you actually had a physical patent number on it.
Yeah.
And that kind of does lead into the serial number thing because we do get people saying, "Oh, my grandpa had this old Hasty bacon. I need you to tell me something about its serial number this," and we're sitting there going, "That means absolutely nothing to me."
Right.
Yeah.
We have no data. There was a fire, we'll talk about it in a minute, that took out all of our usable data. Kind of like how most of us, when we go to look at it, like the Army records of our grandparents or great-grandparents, and the Army's like, yeah, there was a fire.
Yeah.
And we got nothing.
Now, if they have a model number, the early 60s.
That helps.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
of course.
that's good. I mean, I actually have price sheets from in the 60s era where, it refers to the model number and the price and what it was and all that kind of stuff. And that's
Right.
kind of handy. But, that serial number is not helping
Yeah.
out.
Maybe one of these days get like them lined up and figure out if we can figure out some cadence between all the
Yeah.
serial numbers and and I don't know if it was like month, date, number, done that. I don't.
Yeah, I've looked at it before, and I don't remember, but I haven't noticed anything.
I'd love to
I haven't-
deduce it like there's a 74
Right.
in the middle, and we knew that was like 1974 or
Right.
something, But I haven't seen enough of them together to really be able
That's
to figure
it,
out like
yeah.
they all have that or this.
Yeah.
So 1974, Grant says enough's enough. I'm not liking the direction of this. My name's on the product. What's he do?
Buys it back. And, since he's an inventor, and he's always, I think that's what he liked about the company and is inventing stuff and making new models and coming out with new stuff. And, that's fun. I mean, and for an inventor, that's as good as it gets. So
Right.
That's about the time that he made that smoker,
Right.
with the first little drum smoker.
So I'm excited to talk about. Actually, before we go to the drum, can I throw something out of you? Because we're 10 years past this, but I forgot. We're looking at pictures today, and the only caption I could put on this picture to remember to bring it up to you was WTF.
Yeah.
I want to show. What do you know the story behind this one right here?
Yeah.
What in the world? For anyone who's going to join us on the audio version of this podcast, there's some kind of what would be a current model Fiesta on some kind of a cart.
Like a
that
horse
has,
cart.
Like it's
with
a mix
bicycle
between
tires.
a bicycle and a horse-drawn carriage. But I'm looking at the van, that VW that's behind there. Like this is 60s era.
Oh yeah.
It's Angus era.
Yeah.
So as I would say, the title of the photograph, WTF, Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not
got
seen that.
nothing?
But I will say I've got.
He's gonna buy it now.
Yeah.
But I will say I have an offer made.
I will find it. I will track that van down, buy it. But no, I've got pictures of other.
I think that's a Wyman metal van. I think it is. I'm gonna see if I can. Let me drag it down. Like Metal Art of Tulsa, isn't that Wyman?
Proctor Instruments.
Why is that part of
Well,
Wyman?
it does say ornamental. Oh, there we go.
As I scroll down, you can kind of see the top.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, Metal Art. of
So maybe
Tulsa.
it's another one of those weird Wyman products.
Yeah.
There was Alan Ingman he knew Grant Hastings, and he actually sold Hasty Bakes out of his hardware store in late 70s, early 80s.
Mhm.
And
He's still around.
Yeah, he's got the Sequoia.
I have a Sequoia here. Here's the Sequoia. This is another one of those fun ones that pop up over the years.
And that's the
Is that a Sequoia?
that's the Sooner Schooner.
Oh, that's a Sooner Schooner.
That's the big boy. That's the one I have not put my hands on.
I don't have the Sequoia with
I was gonna get.
Oh,
I was gonna
thought we did
try
have
and
one.
buy that and get some mini donkeys to pull it, and I was gonna show up at the competition riding that thing.
riding that thing or riding the mini donkeys.
Both probably. I mean, I'd have fun with.
I'm
all of it,
I'm
I bet.
available for either.
I was hoping that you were going to show up in like period, accurate clothing, like whipping
Yeah.
and drag. Yeah, like Pa Ingalls over here.
We're only a few months away.
Actually, I wanted a little person to drive it and have some minute.
We are live on the air right now.
Isn't that the correct way to
Excuse
say
me?
it? Probably.
I can't keep up. That's amazing. Sorry to throw that. Okay, so grandson inventor. We're having too much fun. Grandson inventor. He reacquires the company, and he's like, "Sweet,
Yeah.
now I can start doing stuff again." We've done some. Jay and I did some research this last week. I feel like I am very safe to say that Hasty Bake was the very first commercially manufactured barrel smoker on the market.
Boom. Hit the button.
Boom. Dropped it off. I don't even. I got so
No,
like I
no.
got,
There it is.
there. That works. That's close enough.
The womp womp.
No, that's not it. I got so many
Yeah.
things here. No, so if you look at commercially available barrel smokers now, there's going to be some old boy down in Central Texas who's been cooking
Sure.
on 55
Sure.
gallon gas barrels, getting cancer for 75 years. But aside from that, like commercially available, you narrow it down to a Weber Smoky Mountain. Weber Smoky Mountain, I believe, came out in 81 or 82. So when you look at that timeline, and there's nothing else on the market that was even close at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The Hasty Bake barrel smoker was launched, I believe, from what we can tell, mid to late 70s. I think
Yes.
is where we went with it, right?
Yeah.
So I want to show you guys a picture of this because this is cool. Now this is not your typical barrel smoker, but that's a barrel smoker right there. And you'll see some pictures of this stuff float around over the years. But this is the original Hasty Bake barrel smoker. Now, it was not in production in a super long time. Truthfully, I think they figured out our other models do a better job of cooking and having space and everything. And I've seen one of these in person. I believe it's an 18-inch, maybe a 20 at the largest. Pull this up here. What do we got? We got that's the top-down view of that barrel smoker. So there's an inside chamber. I'm going to show you a break apart of it here too.
There's a lot going on with that little
A
barrel.
lot. So here's the cool break apart. This is neat. Where am I going? Barrel. I got too many screens going on. See, I told you we're trying to overproduce this.
That's right.
Normally a barrel smoker, you throw some stuff in the bottom,
There we go.
throw some meat on the top.
Yeah.
This is Grant the Inventor. Hashtag Grant the Inventor.
Yeah.
This is how he does something. So you got, if you're looking from the bottom down, you got your base. And then you have a draft ring, and this draft ring would rotate. It would slide into a knob slot, and you could rotate this draft ring back and forth. And then you had an entire fire chamber that would drop on the inside of this. So the coals were not actually up against the outside wall. They're on the inside of it. Then you had a fire grate that would drop down. You had a water pan that would go over it. You had a cooking grill that would go over it. You had a heat shield that filled this little, so the water pan covered the entire circumference. I don't know. I'm not a math guy.
Yep.
Covered the entire surface of this thing, save for one little hole in the middle.
Yep.
And that little hole in the middle had this little heat shield that would let the smoke come up through the hole. So you've seen that if you're looking at
Yep.
the plans here on the podcast. See that fire cooking grill has like a little hole, and you get a little tiny heat shield. And little tiny heat shield is literally like, if you look at a Hasty Bake heat shield now, it's like it's the mini me version.
Right.
I would assume it's probably like 6x6 maybe, and it just blocks just that little bit amount of fire that can come through that hole. It diffuses it, and then that all sits down, and you got this big old cover that comes and sits on the top. And the cool thing about this, and Jay and I kind of mentally and visually broke this down over the last couple weeks, is the way that draft ring and that fire chamber, you see the holes that are in that fire chamber and the holes that are in that draft ring, he engineered it in such a way that your air could come in and hit the fire, because there's no exhaust in this smoker.
Right.
So you'd think there'd be like some kind of an exhaust outlet or something on the top to let the smoke through. The exhaust is actually built in to the actual base. So the whole outside chamber has an exhaust. So there was a way for him to filter the air in through the hole. It would go into that fire chamber, burn all the way up, and then it would hit the outside walls, and it would fall down, and it would fall out an outside hole that was not accessible from an inside hole.
Yeah.
It like literally chambered this exhaust using like this swivel mechanism so that everything was isolated. So you never had heat that was coming in that was also going out a hole right next to it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, it's very complicated.
It is
Probably overly complicated.
I mean, I don't know what you're saying right now. I can't even figure it out.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, the more I look at it, I'm like, I
looked
get
at
where
it,
he was going with it.
I cooked on it for I just filled it up with charcoal and I cooked for 18 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
And I remember, like,
didn't even
you told
touch
me,
it.
you're like, I don't even know how this works. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
It's insane.
But you figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the plans long enough, you can kind of figure out how, because the fire would snuff out if you didn't have a way for the air to place for it to go. If it's not going to go out the top, it's got to go out the bottom. But if it's going to go out the bottom, you'd think it would have to go out the same holes that it came in at. And that little draft ring that he's got in there channels it so that it's forced out a separate hole than what it was forced in at.
And it's adjustable.
So pretty dang cool. I'll get a couple other pictures here. I think I got one.
They must have had it set because it was like rusted in position.
Oh, yeah, like you couldn't move it around.
And I just filled it up with charcoal and lit it. And it cooked forever.
So there's the top of the smoker. I think I showed you. There's another picture of it.
Is there a patent number on that one?
Let me go back and see. I don't know. Let me see if it'll let me.
Maybe we'll get.
I don't think it's going to let me.
I think that's
call
the
Dan.
address and phone number.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
But it just says smoker.
Dan's got it, right?
Yeah, Dan's got it.
Yeah.
Dan, if you're here, can you just run outside real quick
Yeah, and let us know.
and let us know?
Brad's got one too.
Does he?
Basically, I'm just a picker. I buy every Hasty Bake I can find, and then eventually Dan buys it from me.
That's the grate I was telling you about, the little smoke hole that comes up that lets things through, and then there's a little heat shield that drops over that.
Yep.
Literally just sits right on top.
I didn't know that, and I didn't have the heat
Dan
shield.
said sure.
You burned up it. Did you really?
Yeah.
So I cut up a pork butt and put it all around that hole.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see now like the inside chamber here, and it dropped down. It's so dang cool, man.
Yeah.
So this was Grant during the invention years, and that was not on the market long. That's why we can kind of trace the few that we have. But as we came out with our own barrel adjacent model,
Yes.
what we call the roughneck barrel smoker that cooks just like a barrel would.
Right.
I feel pretty confident for all these other barrel companies that are out there to say, yeah, we were the first. They're like,
Yeah.
well, it's not round. It's like, well, you know what?
Yeah.
I was still the first. So
That's
listen
right.
here.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll claim it. We'll take what we can, right?
Just say Jay told me.
Jay
It was
told
the
me.
first.
That's right.
Jay told me you suck, and we're
Yeah.
awesome. So there's a bunch of stuff that Grant did kind of during those invention years. We find some weird stuff off the wall, some gas stuff that popped up. And,
Yeah.
I think it was him kind of rediscovering why he started Hasty Bake in the first place,
Sure.
right? And I think anybody that I've ever known that has been truly an inventor, they never get away from it.
Right.
They always got to find something,
That's the fun of it.
right?
Right.
You know, that's the total. I think, and that's why, I was reading today because we were trying to figure out when Grant sold it, and this one magazine article was talking about how he sold it in '86, and I said, well, that's about the time that the indicator, for
The smoke bake Sear
Yeah,
indicator
smoke
logo,
bake, yeah.
right?
And I said, well, that's something Grant would do.
100%.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how it helps you date a grill when you find that out.
Yeah, because if you look at those old ones, that boomer didn't have, like you got your crank here on this green boomer,
Yeah.
to the crank on the side. There's no indicator on
right.
that.
There's no indicator.
So we'll have people that come in that have those old models, and they'll come in and they want replacement parts for it, and we can always help them retrofit. We don't do it in house anymore. We got too much going on, but we will sell them the parts and walk them through retrofitting it. And one of the things we have to do when we find out what model they have is we have to go inside and physically cut off the piece of the rod that holds that indicator in it, which is not hard to do.
Right.
But because that model just didn't exist until the, I guess, mid-'80s.
Yeah. And that was, I think Adam said that it was, we're trying to date a grill, and Adam hopped on there, and he was like, well, it was right around, 84, 85. And then reading that today, I was like, well, he didn't sell it to 86. That makes sense, because anything that changes on a Hasty bake, I kind of look to Grant as being the guy that's changing it. I don't look to a company that's just a sheet metal company that just wants to build grills.
And the innovation is going to come from someone like a Grant.
Yeah. So, you have to bounce around these little bits of, ideas and facts to kind of date these grills to figure out, where they lie on the timeline that you're building in your head, basically.
Yeah, and something that's fun for me being here, as I've been, is really realizing. I think the outside world. I don't want to blow any people's minds here, but I think the outside world thinks that we're a lot bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at like our spread across the country, like I don't want to say we're regional, but we're not a Weber, we're not a Chartwell, whatever.
Sure.
We didn't sell out to China, so deal with that.
Right.
But I think people think like, oh, it's this massive factory and there's hundreds of people in it. It's really not.
No.
Like our team that handles retail, support, marketing, all that is like less than 10 people. It's a lot closer to 5.
Right.
And the guys that assemble your grills, like there's a team of 3 to 5 guys that are back there assembling your grills. And one of my favorite stories to tell people is, we have a welder. We're gonna get him on.
You were gonna say.
Jason Miller has been here for 25 plus years now. He basically came in right about the time Rich bought the place.
Yeah.
And Jason, being one of our spot welders, has physically touched every single grill in the last 25 years that has gone out of this factory. Yeah. Every single grill.
Yeah.
I think he was hired in 97.
If he got hired in 97?
I believe it was 97. I was talking to him.
So
he basically has worked here as long as I've worked at American.
Yeah.
Just a little bit less, I think.
So it's crazy to think about is like if he took a day off, if he was sick, he just worked more the next day.
Correct.
It wasn't like he had 15 guys coming behind him like doing his work. Like that's his job.
Right.
He's one of basically 2 to 3 spot welders that we have.
Right.
But he's the head of that division. But Jason has this wealth of knowledge of fabrication.
Oh yeah.
And I don't mean wealth of knowledge like he's just done so many things. He's been so ingrained in the company.
Right.
That we'll have something come in that's just off the wall.
Yeah.
And we're looking at pictures and going back and forth, and I'm calling Jay, and we're trying to figure out what the heck's going on with this thing. And finally, someone's like, we should run this by Miller.
Yeah.
And we'll run that to Miller, and he'll be like, yeah, in 1998, there was a shortage of this. So for about a run of 50 or 75, we had to handle this. It lasted about 3 months.
Yeah.
By August, it was cleared up, and we switched back to that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how in the world?
Yeah.
Like to this day, if we go out to the shop and we can't find something, it's like, ask Jason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because he knows every inch of that shop.
That happened this morning.
Yeah. Like every day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we have people like that, and there's longevity in that. But what it's really kind of taught me is that there's a lot of shuck and jive that happens in a shop like ours and a company like ours. That you're not going to happen when you have to produce 20,000 units.
Right. Well, even in some of the stuff that I do, when I've got to take care of a customer, like this was yesterday, if I have to jump in my truck and run, personally run parts down to FedEx to ship them.
Right.
Like that's just what I'll go do.
That's what we'll do. Right.
And, if you're in some of these bigger, with these bigger companies, they're not going to do that. They're not going to run, personally run your shipment down to the FedEx store to be sure that it goes out that day.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of, to me, it's just fun, man. It just reminds us that like, all right, we're all teammates.
Right.
In a little bit of a battle here. And I'll tell on us a little bit. We had when we launched the Roughneck, we had that grate issue that came out where we'd secured these cast iron grates, and we thought we were going to have them for long term.
Yeah.
And then the manufacturer pulled them, and we decided to do them in house.
Yeah.
Right. Like in 20 years from now, there's going to be someone like Jason Miller who's like, yeah, for a month and a half in 2022, we shipped these grates out.
Yeah.
And because someone's going to have a roughneck now in 40 years,
Right.
and they're going to be like, man, what's going on? I can't find these grates anywhere. I only see it, it's for a month and a half.
Right.
That's what
you
we
were
ended
one
up
of the
doing.
original.
Right.
That's one of the first, what was it, 50 grills or
Yeah, I think
not even,
probably less than
you
that.
know? Yeah. So
Yeah, that was fun. But we have the ability to do that,
Right.
and that's one thing that I'm very proud of us on is when that happened with the grates, like we were able to pivot real quick.
Yeah.
And like we looked around and like tried to find another manufacturer, and all of them are like, well, we can get them out of China. It's going to take 16 weeks and this and that.
Right.
And we're like, I'll stop you at getting them out of China.
Right.
Like
That's right.
If we can do it in house, we'll do it in house, and we're going to make a better product, and then we'll never deal with this again because we can do it in house.
Right.
And truthfully, should we have done it like that from the beginning? Maybe. I really liked the idea. Maybe it was me. I really liked the idea of the cast iron grates. I just thought it was very cool. It was a throwback to Kent Rollins. It was great. But at the end of the day, like if you're choosing between an inferior quality product and something
That's
we can
correct.
make in house that we know is going to be quality,
Right.
like we're going to pick that every single time.
Right.
But we can do that because we're nimble and
Yeah.
because we're not a company of 2,500 people.
It's not a cruise ship.
Right. So we can flip things on a dime.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit, and I think in our team that we have here now, there's a little bit of Grant in that team, or that inventor in that team.
yeah.
Now we may not be inventor, engineer, technical like some of our guys are, but there's that mindset of like, let's get creative. And the cool thing now is I think, maybe more so than, I don't want to say more so than any other time in history, but definitely more so, than recent, is we have a lot of people on the team who are cooks.
Yes.
And everyone understands the product from a cooking perspective, which is great because when we come at problems, we can come at them from a perspective of like the end game is X, right? I just want to cook some ribs, man.
Right.
Like, and let's figure out what that problem is and be able to resolve it from that end.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, the numbers aren't lining up or this metal isn't like, okay, let's just remember what our end game is, right? We make grills for a living, and that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Grant invents, tweaks as he does, and then something happens in the 1980, 1981-ish area.
The big fire.
Yep.
So the place, I don't think they know what happened, but anyway, the burnt down and all their drawings and all their history kind of just burned up. And
So you're telling me, Jay, that they didn't have an off-site computer backup in 1981? They weren't using Amazon Web Services?
I think the cloud failed them.
Yeah.
at
that
that
could
point.
be it.
Yeah.
It could be it. It was the cloud. We'll blame it on the cloud.
That's right.
So they relied on the public. A lot of people brought in old flyers and old, everything they needed to start it back up and get the drawings and all the dimensions and everything they needed to keep it going.
Yeah.
You know,
Because unlike now, we have something happen, like we can pull up old files or it's
Right.
offsite or whatever. It's at least in some format digital. Back then it was not digital at all. So it was one of those, like, every single time they needed to do something on the press break, they were manually moving and locking in and putting in pieces and tooling and everything. It wasn't like now where you just go up to the screen and you recall,
Yeah.
I'm breaking a legacy. Here's the legacy file, and it pulls it up, and now everything's all in. Like, no, you're manually twisting and turning and everything.
handmade.
So now it came down to who's got a legacy they can bring in that I
Yeah.
can put a tape measure on
Yeah.
and figure out the 47 brake lines on this machine.
Right.
Where are they, and how? And they had to rebuild from scratch. I mean, luckily you probably had some, tribal knowledge there. But at the end of the day,
And probably some good guys in the shop.
yeah, tribal knowledge and
Could
great
do it
guys
in
in the
their
shop
sleep,
that actually,
you know?
could do it in their sleep, but they had to start from, pull out the legal pad, like we're doing
Yeah.
this from scratch. And it is cool because, we tout now about the Hasty Bake community being so cool and so active and involved.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really look at, even back then, it's the same kind of thing we have now, where people are probably like, well, I got this old manual and I got this old brochure for this and I got this old price list and it just kind of came out of the woodwork over the years, and they were able to rebuild pretty much, from my understanding, almost everything they produced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, all that stuff still comes out today when someone finds an old grill, and that's a lot of the way how we found, to be able to date these grills is we were hunting these grills down on Craigslist, on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, in estate sales, in the newspaper, garage sales, countrywide.
Yeah.
We were having them shipped in from different parts of the country.
Right.
We were driving to Dallas and driving to Kansas, and because we were so obsessed with chasing after these grills. And then every time you bought a grill, you just learned something.
Right.
And then there might be some paperwork with it, or a story with it, or they told you some history with it, and that's how I ended up with at one point. I mean, I had a pile of grills.
Right. I want to jump into that. So we had the fire, and then from what we can gather, about 4 or 5 years later, Grant sells the company. And then it changes hands multiple times over the course of different partners, different partner groups. Eventually lands, I think it was 94 that Richard purchased the company. He still owns it to this day. And like I said before in the beginning, we're going to have him come in.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about kind of what that was like in the early 90s and going on, like when we started really redeveloping things again. And there's a lot of development that Richard did. And Richard's an engineer.
Yeah.
So he did development on the front end. I think the Hastings was one of his things that he kind of brought out and was a nice throwback to Grant. But he brought that to market and some other things. So
that's one grill that they had a painted version, and it had cast iron grates.
Right.
The original Hastings.
Yeah.
And that's one grill I've never seen. The early.
I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah, pictures, but that's,
Right.
Yeah, 60s.
Yep. Before I want to bring this in because this was really cool too. This was Dream. Before we jump into your story, which is where we're heading next as far as the collection goes, I believe, was it during kind of those invention expansion years that we started seeing these indoor cookers pop up?
Yeah.
I got a couple pictures of these I want to show.
This is insane to me.
Imagine.
This is someone's house. That's their cabinets and that's their sink.
Yeah.
Little Johnny sleeps in the crib in the corner.
The insurance man is
Nowhere to be found is where the insurance.
He's like, I don't know what that is.
There's some drawers there. There's some rotisserie chickens going with a hood vent.
I've never seen that picture.
And we got some stuff.
Well, you got to share it with me a little.
Well, this is something that I'm really excited about. Is it's our 75th anniversary this year, and Tiffany, who is a rock star, she's my marketing assistant, and she just goes to the end of the earth to do stuff for us, and she is really trucking through and going through all these old photos and like trying to label them. We're getting metadata on them and like trying to gather whatever we can. And some of this stuff is like physical. It's in an album, and we're like scanning it with the phone. And all that kind of stuff. So she's finding all these things. So when I told her you were coming on, and I was like, hey, here's the stuff we need to pull. Like she threw a bunch of stuff in a folder for us. So very neat stuff. So here's another one. I think you've seen this one, maybe not. I'm still trying to figure out what's the knob in the middle? Is this gas assist? I know, he's gonna pull your glasses out here. I can't tell what that is. Guys, this is real right here. Like these are products we made. We have no idea what they are. I think it's the same model as the other one, but I don't think the other one. Let me pull back up the other one. The other one didn't. I don't see a knob on it. I see the crank knob on the right, but I don't see this knob in the middle. So I don't know.
Brad has that one.
Right.
Is built-in in his outdoor kitchen.
Right.
And he did something right there, and it had I can't say what that is.
I got one more here. Actually,
interesting. It's got a stainless door, and then everything else is painted.
Right.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and it's got the what's going on with the Rotis thing on the right? What's this thing? Is that a light?
Yeah, that's a light.
Is that the light?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at the positioning of the crank.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
It's like a third of the way through.
Dude.
It's so cool. You sent me one. You sent me the indoor.
Can you imagine having that in your man cave? I mean,
yeah.
It'd be ridiculous.
I can't find the one you sent me.
The one in the garage?
Yeah.
Dude, that thing. There's a guy. He comes to the competition. I can't remember his name, but he bought it.
Okay.
And the firebox is made out of fire brick.
Okay.
It's like an offset. And then it has this huge cabinet It's like a 6-foot tall cabinet, and that's where you put all your meat in. I mean, they literally, it's like a restaurant, you know, capacity.
Right.
And then it's got the vent hood and everything over it. And these people were selling it out of their house, and it had never been cooked on. It was like brand new.
And I'm sorry, I cannot find it. I wish I could. I know you sent me a bunch of them. It's huge, though.
It's huge. Yeah. And it's just, that's definitely Grant going, hey, we can make something, you know, we can figure it out. We can do something cool here, you know.
Right.
And just has his guys, you know, do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Put it together and build it.
But yeah, I've never seen another one.
No, I haven't either.
Oh,
but that one keeps popping up. That's the one in Daly's family had it, right?
Yeah.
Mark Daly's
Yeah.
family.
I think his mom had it in her house in the garage, and she was like, I'm not cooking on that thing.
Yeah. While we're talking about the next thing, I'm hell bent on finding this thing now. So I'm going to dig into the messages you sent me and pull this up.
It was one of those things that people were telling me about, and I was like, dude, I was so excited to go look at it. You know,
Right.
I was so like pumped up, and but it was you had to have a commitment to this grill.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you were gonna have to rebuild the firebox out of brick and put it somewhere where
It wasn't
like,
going to be easy for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't going on a trailer or anything like that. It was like you were gonna build a home for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I got it. Putting it in here. There you go. Where is it? There it is.
Got it.
There it is.
Check that out.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so if you look at it,
So,
There it
so
is.
that brick thing on the
yeah.
side is the firebox.
And it had this little fire door down, to the right there, and it looked a little difficult to work with as far as that firebox
Zoom in
door.
on
But
that a little bit, yeah.
I mean, that was and then what was cool though?
That's old school Texas pit though.
yeah.
Like when you go to the old
yeah.
the places like in Lockhart, like they have this offset pit that's just open and you throw it. But this isn't a freaking house, guys.
Yeah, that's in the garage. And then the bottom, there was a door on the bottom, and that would open up, and you could grill with it, or kind of like old school pit smoke and grill with it.
Right.
You
So
know what I mean?
so it was a legit firebox under there.
Yes.
So that
yes.
was like a way to braise with
Yeah.
it.
So
but-
you could have an offset fire, or you could have a regular fire at the bottom of that thing.
right.
We should make that.
And dude, that right there
I
was
would love that.
that was 6 feet tall. I mean, that was big.
I mean, I'm looking at it. You could put some meats in that.
I was gonna get it and use it as like like where I could put my socks and underwear in and put it in my bedroom or something.
It's not
It's
that
never,
kind of
it was
show.
never used.
It was never used, dude. It was minty.
I mean, if it was
so
used,
clean.
I mean, it would probably improve the smell of socks, if we're being honest.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was in a garage. We moved in years when I was very young. I was probably 9 years old. We moved into this house. It was, I'm going to turn this off. Thanks. We're still trying to figure out how to produce this show, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We were, why can I not remove that?
There we go.
Thanks. We moved into this house that went into the garage, and like the entire ceiling of the garage was like black and greasy. And what we'd realized is that the people that had lived there before us were of a different nationality, and they had, from best I can tell, had some kind of either a fryer or a wok. And instead of using the washer and dryer, they used the gas line for the dryer to run their fryer or their wok.
Oh, wow.
And they were cooking, and there's no vent in there.
Yeah.
So they would, I don't know, set up a fan or something like that and cook in their garage. I mean, at least that one had a dang vent.
Yeah.
It did, right? Second guess myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a vent up there.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jay, in 1987, you get your first Hasty bake.
Oh,
Um,
I'll tell that. So
you start mowing lawns?
so in '87 I got my first Hasty bake, and I knew that it was something good, and I just kind of held on to it.
Right.
And then in my early 20s, and this would be like 91, 92, I started mowing Simmons, their yard.
Right.
And they had just I think they had just like sold Hasty Bake, and every time they had a couple of refrigerators in this side garage, and he had it full of beer, by the way, and I told me I could get something to drink, so I just went ahead and got a beer.
There you go.
And when you mow the lawn,
That's
yeah,
right.
as well.
So I'd go in there and I'd grab one or two.
The
or,
drink of choice.
Yeah.
couple. Anyway, he had a row of stainless Hasty Bakes sitting there, and I was just like, dude, look at that. I mean, it was like every model in stainless, in a row, and I was like, that is killer. And but I didn't like go bonza, it just nuts yet. I just was
Right.
like, that's cool,
Right.
So, a couple years later, I'm married and, I'm like, hey, I need a grill. And I score one at a garage sale. It's $10, orange gourmet,
$10.
and this dude was so excited. All I said was, oh, a Hasty bake. And dude, he just goes, get your truck, back it up. He goes, I got ramps right here. We'll load it up. And I'm like,
He knew what it was, and it was still $10.
and I was like, okay. And so that thing was full. The inside of it was full of like aprons and rotisseries and charcoal and lighter fluid and all this stuff. I mean, it was like insane.
Yeah.
If I found it today, I'd be like all over Facebook going, look at this freaking grill I found.
Yeah.
Right.
So I take it home, and it has like about a ½ inch of grease on all the walls of it. It is so seasoned up. You could fill that firebox, like put half a bag of charcoal in it and teeter-totter the heat shield on it, and it would smoke ribs perfectly at like 250 all day long. It was ridiculous.
Locked in.
So, I'm feeling pretty confident these days,
Yeah.
I've got that going on. So there's this big competition at work. I mean, I work at one of the largest employers in Tulsa, and they have a
It's just our recognition there.
There you go.
they
Drop
have
it. Drop it a name.
they have a big barbecue contest, and so I drag that $10 grill out there, and I win first place ribs and reserve grand champions.
This is what Jay looks like after he wins first place ribs and
There
grand
it is.
champion right
And
there.
and that was actually when I won grand champion
Okay.
out there, and I'm the only guy that cooked all night. Like,
That's why you're
Yeah,
sweating.
you
They
can
were-
tell.
those dudes were all like in the tent asleep, and that guy was eating biscuits and gravy.
That guy's still asleep.
And I was sitting there with 2 legacies working my butt off. So, but anyway, rewind into that other deal. I won reserve grand champion, and they gave me a freaking trophy. It was the size of the Stanley Cup. Okay, and I took that thing home, and I was like, okay, I'm getting in now, So
He got bit.
I got bit bad. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to smoke a brisket, So I got my grill. Now this is the warning right here. I've got the gourmet is opened up. I've got charcoal lit. I've got a 1/4 to a ½ inch of grease on all the walls of this 40-year-old grill. And
This doesn't sound like anything bad could happen.
and
Everything's fine.
The fire's lit. The door's open. I go in the house to get the brisket.
Sorry, rewind. The fire's lit, the door's open, I go in the house.
Yeah.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets bad. My wife had some biscuits and gravy ready to go. I'm like, what's the harm in stopping what I'm doing? Give me 15 minutes. I'm going to eat some biscuits and gravy.
Red-blooded American right there.
Okay.
That's right.
So I walk
I
out.
could burn down the house, but give me my damn biscuits.
I walk out of the house with that brisket, and I look, and dude, that gourmet is on full-fledged fire, okay? There is a flame coming out like 2 feet out of that thing. So I run over there and I grab the little bifold door, and it swings right into the grill. It doesn't even touch the sides. So I had to get some welding gloves on, and
We sell those, by the way.
and
We do.
and grab those and position this thing so it's shut, and then the whole grill's like making all this noise, like just screaming at me.
That's the
That's the noise of the grill.
That's the demon. That's the fire demon.
Yeah,
Breathing.
it was very angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, like,
If you would have had
It
a
was
tell-true
so
thermometer, it would have shot out the front.
that's happened. I know a guy that's happened to.
I know.
And that grill got so clean inside, and it straightened right back up. It straightened right back up. I mean, once it was done doing its dance, it just straightened up. Everything was cool.
It's a self-cleaning mode.
It
Yeah.
was.
It's a feature, not a
It
bug.
was.
That's right.
And I was like, I mean, now the paint job was fried.
What was on the grill at the time? Nothing? You're just firing it up?
No, I was just firing it up.
Look at you. Great timing.
And so I learned, I mean, like all things, the hard way, And I learned, okay, so I sanded her down and I painted her and I kept, using her. And after that, I was like, for some reason I had to get a stainless one,
That way you don't have to paint it again.
Yeah. So I put that thing on Craigslist or one of those, Facebook, and Nick Hilton came and got that. I didn't even know him back then.
Right.
he came and got that thing, and man, he loved it. Cooked great. He sold it to another guy that I know, and he loves it. He still has it, loves it. Still a great grill, you know.
There's truth to the I've got this old Hasty Bake story that everyone tells.
Yeah.
So I got that stainless one, and I took it to the competition, and I thought I was just going to dominate. And that thing overheated on me, and I didn't know how to cook on a stainless one. A nice, clean stainless one.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to a greasy, powder-coated one.
Yeah.
You know, there's a learning curve there that I didn't know about.
There definitely is.
You know?
You're going to want to knock that shine off.
We've always experienced, all of us have
Yeah.
been.
So,
The first time I cooked on a stainless Hasty Bake, we were running our barbecue school here, and I needed more grill space because we were doing a chicken class, and I was going to do chicken wings as one of the things in the class, and I wanted everyone to have a pound of chicken wings to cook on their own, so I needed more grills. So I came down here, I was like, man, I need to buy a couple stainless Hasty Bakes. So I bought them, and the first time I fired them up was about half an hour before that class. And we had some chicken wings, but those grills were 600 degrees.
and the way, now this is what I've discovered after I was watching YouTube on some like Thai street food thing I was telling you earlier.
Yeah.
And they throw out all this lump charcoal, and they're cooking like 100, 200. I mean, it's ridiculous how many chickens they're cooking. One dude's cooking 100 chickens.
Right.
And he throws out all this lump charcoal and gets it all lit, and then he covers it all in
Ash.
ash.
Yeah.
And it just made it cook slow, long and slow, and at a nice temperature. And so anytime you have an overheat situation on a Hasty Bake, especially you new guys with a stainless, save your ash, leave it in there, let it build up, and if you have a situation, little shovel, cover your charcoal, it'll bring your temperature down, and you're not, dumping water on it or pulling it out.
Yeah, don't dump
Dump
water
it in
on
the
it.
yard, or
Please don't.
it'll.
We've all done it, but don't.
We're saying please don't.
I still have a black mark on my back patio. So I was had a charity we were cooking for one day. It's cold as heck. I think it was 10 degrees outside in the winter. And we were cooking like 40, 50 pounds of sausage, right? And this is when I discovered that you can fit 10 pounds of sausage links on a Hasty Bake Legacy at one time. And it's probably 5 o'clock in the morning. I was doing this lunch thing for him. And I'm sitting out there, sitting in the house looking out the window because it's 10 degrees. And I start seeing my thermometer. And it's doing this. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what? I'm physically watching this thing move. And it hit me like, these are pork sausage links. And I'm like, oh, no.
They just sprung a leak, didn't they?
And I run out there. I run out there and I grab the handle, and this one idea flashes, and it's like, you remember that movie Backdraft?
That's right.
And at that point, I'm like, I don't know what to do first. Do I open it up and see if it's on fire? Or do I open? So I didn't open it up and see if it was on fire.
Yeah.
I opened the firebox up, and yes, it was on fire.
Was on fire.
And it was bad on fire. But I had this charity thing, and I did not have any more of this sausage, right? And luckily, I caught it quick enough. Like, I watched it going up. So I literally put on a welding glove, and I reached in, and I grabbed the side of that firebox, and I just flung it across the yard. And all that pork grease that had dripped down into that firebox followed with it.
Yeah.
And just lined the patio as the fire was following it. And it went, and there was snow on the ground. And it went, and the firebox landed in the snow and seared through the snow into the lawn. And I'm like, what just happened? So I shut the door, and it held temp without the fire, and it held temp for about another 15 minutes for me to move the stuff around.
Yeah.
But I think it took me about a year and a half, 2 years of pressure washing that until I just got kind of a dark patch on the back porch. So we've all had that stainless grease fire moment.
Yep.
Tell her, I mean, that's what I cook on a stainless, and I love. But it's just, you just got to get them seasoned.
Yeah.
Just got to get them black, and then
knock the shine off.
Yeah, just knock the shine off.
We did have a question pop up. It says, is there a difference between how a built-in cooks versus a regular one? You got experience in that?
I've got 3 Fiestas, and
as one does.
Yeah, as you do.
I have anything I buy, it has magnetism and it draws similar things. If I buy one Hasty Bake, I end up with 30 something. But as far as a Fiesta, and as far as my Angus, They all are a little different. They all have, their little things that you want to learn and you get dialed in on. And then I won't cook on one for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll decide to cook on it, and then I'll like remember everything about it and be like, I love this grill. I'm going to cook on this grill every day, And then I'll cook on it for a while, and then I'll be like, oh, my Ranger, I need to cook something small, and then I'll cook on it and go, God, I love this Ranger, and I'll just so.
Well, we're not the only ones.
Yeah. The Ranger, I mean, dude.
Yeah, the built-ins do cook a little different.
Yeah.
Airflow is a touch different in them. It's actually more controlled. But you look at the Hastings, you got so much air available in that cavity because it's so large that at some point, like, you have to kind of be aware of how is that air interacting with my fire. So they do cook differently. There's a big learning curve. If you're a Hastings owner, the entire season of barbecue videos that we did last year, I did on the Hastings.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of Hastings content. That will be available to you, if you're still kind of trying to learn that stuff there. So, all right. So, Jay, you did your first competition. You're hooked up on Hasty Bake. I want to go through the timeline here. After you get hooked in on Hasty Bake, you start realizing like there's a correlation between Hasty Bake and Tulsa history.
Yeah. So, it was kind of like a buzz at work, and especially the dock I was on. There were several guys into smoking and grilling and stuff like that. And so we decided, they were all like, hey, I'm going to go buy a smoker. I'm going to go get a grill. And I talked one of my friends into getting a Hasty Bake. And he was about to go to Georgia and buy some big offset. And I was like, you like Tulsa history and you're into, we've always collected. He's been into it. I've restored and collected motorcycles for 20 years, old Honda motorcycles.
Right.
I've been into old cars, old BMX bikes from the 70s, Schwinn Stingrays, all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of like just all bled over into this Hasty Bake thing, like, all that stuff I was into. And now it's like, okay, hey, I'm into smoking. I love smoking, but there's more to it than that. There's like this history. And so it turned into like a competition with this friend of mine at work. And it could have been like 2 years. And dude, every day, every break, every lunch, every second break, we just researched. I mean, did nothing but research. And it was like a competition to say, hey, look what I found. I found this newspaper clipping. Look what I found. I found this, picture of this old grill. What's the deal with this grill? I've never seen this grill before.
Right.
And that's what like intensified it. Was the competition. It wasn't just me going, I'm going to dig into this. It was like almost like you want to one up the guy.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I found this. Well, I found this. And it was fun. I mean, we're having a good time about it. And that's what spurred, going out of state. Like, we weren't just searching Tulsa for a grill.
Right.
We were searching the whole country for these grills, and I mean, the old grills. And so that's what led us, eventually we were like, okay, we've done the estate sale, the garage sale, the newspaper, Craigslist. There's this Facebook community. The only reason I'm on Facebook is because Hasty Bake, community. That's it.
Right.
That's the reason I got on. And
You don't like to fight with the local people and like the news channels and like, bitch about the comments and give your input on the legal advice of the day.
totally out.
Yeah, not your thing.
We've got one ambassador to probably do that, but
We got a few.
but
They hang around.
so after, we got really serious about into that and chasing after these. I mean, there was a time, because like if I get the bug, put it this way, I saw a grill on someone's back patio and I knocked on their door and I bought their Hasty Bake. Like that's the level. And this was a country clubber, early country clubber with the front crank with the window mechanism and all that kind of stuff. It had the original rotisserie, a Hasty Bake rotisserie. Was a round motor. It was really cool looking, a pancake motor.
Yeah.
You were living and dreaming about it. You were just like, when I get like a focus on something, it's my wife's going, you need to like think about breathing and eating and other things besides what you're thinking about.
When was the last time you went to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Is this? I'm going to show a picture. Is this this is your collection, right? Or is this Brad? Whose collection is this? That
that, that's that was just a load of grills I bought that day. That was one load of grills.
just repeat that one more
Yeah.
time.
That was one day. That was a load of grills I bought one day.
Okay, I'm gonna let that sink
And that
in.
wasn't my grills. I mean, my grills that I cooked on were in the back.
Right.
That was just a group of grills I got from a guy who was getting out of the collecting, and so I went to his house and I got everything.
I see 1, 2, 3 coffin tops there.
Yeah,
3.
And you're still married.
Surprisingly enough, there's 3, 4 rolling Rangers,
see, she's
a country clubber.
It used to be like, a 78 Trans Am in that spot, a Honda.
I mean, I guess
chopper
if
in
you're
that
on that
spot,
scale,
Yeah.
it's like, honey, I spent $100,000 on shoes, and then the next month you're like, I spent $20,000 on shoes. Aren't you proud of me?
Yeah.
Like, is that good? Are we improving?
I don't know.
I don't know. Do you have like a large amount of life insurance?
So every one of those grills, that were, well, just like the rarest ones, Dan basically was like, hey, I mean, they're all gone. I don't own a single one of those grills still.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've all, gone on to.
We're gonna have an American Flippers episode.
I am not a collector. I am a guy that likes to buy that stuff
and who's in denial.
Yeah.
Well, I'll restore it. I'll learn about it, but its lifespan at my house is maybe a year or two.
That's true.
And then, I got to enjoy it. But to be honest with you, I'm always looking for the next deal.
You're looking, and you like to pass them on.
Yeah.
You like for
Yeah.
people to experience.
And I'm bringing them from somewhere where, someone that didn't care about it, didn't know about it.
Right.
Someone who's like, oh, dude, you got that? I mean,
Right.
they're digging it. You know? So it's going to be saved then, instead of just rotting away.
For sure. At some point in your collecting career, you experienced the white whale. You got bit by the Angus bug, and you had to find it.
Yeah. So
Where'd that start?
The Angus was, I've always known about it. I've always known that was the pinnacle.
Right.
That was like the most expensive, rarest hasty bake, period. Like, in any collecting, you're always going, okay, this is the top of the, run right here.
Right.
This is the ultimate. Okay. And so you dance around and you're getting grills and you're learning about them and you're fixing them up and you're always looking for the next thing. But, you start going, hey, I need something rarer. I need something cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so.
And nothing's cooler than that, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's just.
I mean, they sent. I don't know if you have the picture of the one. I mean, it's just like that, really. But it's the showroom picture, and that's a showroom picture also, so that's good enough. But
Another one there.
I think there's one from Wyman Metalcraft. Doug Bracken sent me.
I got one from a shop, but I don't know if that was yours or not. Nope, that's not. Nope, that's not. I'm just rolling through them at this point.
Just roll through them.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's when I first found it.
Okay, so this was the condition you got it in.
That one picture.
And then this is.
And that's after. So what I had to do is, the way I
I
found
have a
it.
mid-restore picture here too. I think that was the original, right, with the rust and everything on it.
Yeah. That's the original. That's the night I got it. Basically,
That's nice. That was the birthing picture right there.
Yeah.
That was,
I scored 2 legacies off like Facebook, and I was late for work, and I had them in the back of the truck, and I was like, man, I don't want to fix up another set of legacies, and I wasn't that pumped about it because they needed some metal work and stuff, and I was talking to this guy, and he's like, God, I'd love to have a legacy, and I go, dude, you know what, you can have them for what I paid for them,
Yeah.
and he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, dude, you can take them. So he threw them in the back of his truck, and he got them fixed up, and he's been cooking on them for like 3 years. And I hadn't seen him in like 3 years.
Yeah.
But dude, he was like into it. And so he calls me up out of the blue and goes, dude, I don't know what it is, but it's a hasty bake, and it's serious. And
the legacy guy.
yeah.
Okay.
And I go, I'm on my way. So I hop in my golf cart, and I blaze over to where he's at. And in the back of my mind, I was like,
19 miles away.
Yeah.
I was like, if this is an Angus, dude, I don't. So he shows
I
me
mean,
these
did he lead
pictures.
you to believe like it could be?
Yeah,
an
he
Angus?
just goes, this is like crazy big, dude. This is unbelievable. And so he was looking at a 3-story house on 20 acres with this huge back patio and this Olympic-sized pool. I mean, but it was massive. But it had this, and like it was like a dog house. I mean, the dog stayed underneath the table. Like that's where the dog stayed.
Yeah.
Okay, they did not care about this grill. And he showed me these pictures, and I can play. I mean, I don't get buck fever. I can, when I see something, I can play cool and go, yeah, that's a nice grill.
Right.
Dude, I said, look, that's the rarest, most expensive Hasty Bake ever made, period. I said, I will buy you a brand new Legacy just as a finder's fee for that if you give me a chance to buy it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I had it in 2 days.
So did he buy the house or he just bought that?
He bought the house.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah. So I was like, dude, I'm not going to force you to buy the house. I'm not going to try and talk you into buy the house. But if it has to happen to close the deal, man, make it happen.
Yeah.
$4 million for.
That's right. That's right.
So do me a favor real quick because I want to talk about how you started restoring this thing, but walk us through, maybe this is going to be a better picture right here. Walk us through what is on this Angus. So again, going back to what we talked about earlier, Wyman Metalcraft basically have this gigantic frame that they built around the Hasty Bake, and the entire Angus was built for entertaining.
So the frame is wrought iron, and wrought iron, you cannot buy wrought iron. You can buy scrap wrought iron,
right,
or old wrought iron, but wrought iron is no longer available, and that is a rust-resistant steel. So it's made out of wrought iron, and then all the artwork, all those curves and everything are cast aluminum that are brass riveted on there. It's very personalized. All the chairs have the initials of the family, and the initials are in the grill. There's initials on the bar. So this side of the cabinet side that you're seeing, that cabinet there, is the liquor cabinet, and it's a locking liquor cabinet, and then it has a drawer above it. It's like a cigar drawer. On the other side of that cabinet is the ice maker, and it had a big ice maker, also personalized with their name and everything like that.
Right.
The original tabletops were like a wood Formica, and that didn't last. And one of the previous owners put those glass tops on there, and that was kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
Just to handle the weather and everything like that.
Yeah.
So what I did, the first thing I did was get it up, and it has 8-inch heavy-duty casters. So what I did was put it up on jack stands and replaced all the wheels and blasted everything, cleaned it up real nice, and got it where it would roll around. And then I just sanded the whole thing down and painted it with a high-heat Ford gloss gray. And then I came back with a high-heat gloss black on a roller, and I would just hit the high spots all over that thing, and that gave it that weathered look, that paint job that it had.
Right.
That was, that's basically how I got the look to it. I replaced the bar top with a kind of a butcher block, and then I built the side. It has a side shelf that comes off the grill that I built for it that was missing.
Right. That side shelf, I think, in the umbrella picture here, you can kind of see that popping out with the stuff on it, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. See that side shelf? It just slides in, slides out. I had steel rod turned down to fit in there real nice, and that's real handy to have that.
Yeah, I mean, you got that big old cart, you might as well.
Yeah.
Just keep throwing more stuff on it.
That's right.
That cart, that's about 550 pounds. And
Actually, I thought it would be more than that.
It's unbelievable how easy it rolls around.
Yeah.
There's a grab bar in the front of the grill, and the swivel.
So that bar that straddles the front of the grill is actually how you steer it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it's unbelievable. I mean, I pushed it on that trailer of mine by myself. It rolls around really good.
Yeah. How long did it take you to restore it?
It wasn't hard. I mean, it was a few months. It was one of those deals that I'd say, now the grill itself, the shell was in good shape. Everything inside needed to be replaced and reworked.
Yeah.
The bifold door, I took it off and actually polished the whole thing out. It's got a nameplate, it has two nameplates, the Hasty Bake nameplate and then especially made for by Wyman Metalcraft 4, and it has his signature on there, the family signature,
Right.
the Texas oilman that owned it. I actually contacted the one remaining family member and sent her pictures of it, so she got to see it. The inside, you know, everything's been redone. The lift mechanism, we had to take a torch, heat it all up to get it to break free. And then,
Yeah, because I mean, you couldn't replace it with a modern lift.
yeah. And then once we got it broke free, then I just replaced everything, and it's all brand new inside. I will say the stainless is not quite as thick as today's Fiestas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can drill through that a little bit easier. It's just a little bit lighter gauge.
You had to put a chimney on it, didn't you?
Yeah, so that didn't have an exhaust.
And we still don't know how that worked.
Yeah, and maybe it was something to do like the smoker, you know, where it kind of used the intake as the exhaust or something like that. But it just, you know, I was like, you know what, I want to cook on this thing, and it's not going to hurt. You know, I'm not doing anything to the cart.
Yeah.
It's just sheet metal. If someone went nuts, you know, we could replace the sheet metal. But I thought I'm going to put a chimney on it to make it cook like a normal Fiesta.
So
Hasty
the
bake.
Fiestas, if anyone's unaware, the Fiesta that's our built-in model has a what we call a chimney. It's kind of, I don't know what you would call that, like an HVAC or something. But it's basically a cavity on the back that channels the smoke out, so that instead of coming out the side of the grill and going into people's faces, it goes up above your head.
Right.
So a Fiesta is basically, it's the same setup as a gourmet, but instead of the exhaust coming out the side, it comes directly out the back, and that's that chimney. So the exhaust on your end there was no exhaust holes at all either.
Zero.
So you had to drill out the holes out of the back where they would normally be on a Fiesta,
Yes.
and then you attach the chimney where it would normally be on a Fiesta, so it actually breathed.
Yeah.
Did you ever fire it up before you put the chimney on it?
No. Yeah, it just bugged me too much.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, this is.
Well, I mean, these were developed in the 60s, right?
Right.
And, like, things happened over the years where you learn. So, I mean, at some point, it's like it works.
Right.
But, 20 years of development later, like, something else probably works better.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it may not be 1,000% original, but I think you have a very functional cooker now.
I mean, now it's, and the door, that was back when there was this little single latch for the door.
Right.
And so, I put that, what do you call it, that fur, whatever you guys used on the smoker, that fur tape.
Oh, the
Oh, yeah,
gasket.
the gasket.
That
yeah.
gasket.
Yeah.
Yep.
I put that gasket on there and then put 2 double latches, the little that we used to have on the 357. I say we used to, like I work here. But it's latched.
Part of the family, buddy.
It's all latched tight. So now it's, you know what I mean? The more you mess with one, the more you're like, okay, now I got it. Like it's tuned in now, you know what I mean?
Well, and if you're going to move it, trailer it, like those latches all help kind of keep everything in place.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's it's one now that I'd trust to, throw a brisket on and do a long burn and the whole deal. Yeah.
So it's a functional piece of history.
That's right.
Yes. It needs to, I mean, it really, I'd say for maybe a month or two, it should be in like a museum or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Neat.
Yeah.
And I actually went and bought, on the display, they show all these old glasses and old, coffee maker, all this old, cool stuff that went with the air. So that's what I've done is I've bought all this old stuff that kind of goes with it. So it kind of, matches, I guess.
Yeah. Period specific.
That's right.
Type of, I mean, so you brought it out to Grill Fest, which is our big summer celebration that we do every year.
Yep.
And had it as part of your, I guess your site where you cooked from.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people came through and tasted food and sat down and got in the shade. And
Yeah, they all hung out. And it was funny because people were sitting there and people would go, what, is this part of your grill? People see it and go, is it all, they don't realize it's all one piece.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, the whole thing rolls around. I mean, it's all one unit.
Right.
It's a 10-foot long, monstrosity.
It was pretty cool and surreal at, the end of the night after all the teams had cleared out of our parking lot.
Right.
The only thing that was left was the Angus.
Yeah.
And I think it was the three of
and
us.
5 drunk Hasty Vapor.
Yeah, I think it was the 3 of us and Adam Myers and a couple other guys sitting around just hanging out after this.
Smoking cigars, having a
after this
drink.
long day.
It's what it was designed to be.
It really was. I mean, it felt, like guys at a car show. They spent all this time, they find this car, their dream car, and then they fix it up, and then they finally take it to this show, and they get to really live it. And so I had just really gotten it done, and then to be able to take it out here and everybody see it, and then just like hang out at it the rest of the night when everyone else is gone, the parking lot's empty, and we're all just partying with it. It was like, this is worth it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty special, man. Yeah. Especially to like, have it be that piece of history, that we knew it was, and we were all excited. I remember you texted me pictures when you got it, and you're like, "I'm going to restore this, and I think I'm going to do the paint like this. I'm going to try to get a fridge that'll match it, and the whole thing." And then actually see it in person.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's nothing like that anywhere in the barbecue world.
No.
Yet.
Well, now.
I mean, that is, as far as like the ultimate grill setup, there's nothing that comes close to it.
It's literally your patio on wheels.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the original outdoor kitchen.
Yeah. I love it, man. Original outdoor kitchen. I love it. This has been really cool, man.
Yeah, this has been great.
It's a great kind of, and what I was telling Jay when we kind of jumped into this, people say they wish we would have taken time to look at it closer that day. I'm sure Jay will bring it back out for another grill fest at some point here.
Yeah.
It's made to show off. You have to.
Show dog.
For sure. But what was kind of cool, we were talking about this when we were planning this show, because for a couple of weeks we've done notes and photos and everything because we wanted to try to get as much as we possibly packed into one. There's no comprehensive, like exhaustive, line of Hasty Bake history. Like you can't come by the books or this is the movie or the video. Like it's this massive conglomeration of everything that anyone's ever been able to distill from the stuff that we currently have and your stuff and other people's stuff and pictures and there's still new stuff we discover all the time. Like we'll go down a rabbit hole of looking for something and we're like, hey, have you ever seen this?
Yeah.
Like this was in a pamphlet from 1973 and we never noticed this or that or what. Like today when we saw the little gas tank thing on the front of this cooker.
Sure.
And I'm like, I think it's gas. And you're like, that looks like a regulator, but what's this other knob?
Yeah.
Like we don't know. So there's so many things like we don't know.
Yeah.
And some people may know or not, but to be able to try to get a bunch of this in one place, and try to get as much of that knowledge as possible in one place, because we hang our hat pretty heavy on the fact that we're the oldest grill company in the country, and you can't undo that. Like unless we went out of business, there's not going to be a new oldest grill company in the country. So it's pretty important for us to hold on to that history. Like Weber has a museum of their history and all the stuff that's gone down, and we've never gone down that road.
Yeah.
And I don't feel really the need to, but we have people in our community like you and others that collect these things and learn about them and do the research and distill that information down. So I think from a romantic side, there's like a little bit of me that's like, I'm tied to this.
For sure.
From an employment standpoint, sure.
Right.
But also from a hobby standpoint. Like I was, was a Hasty Baker well before I ever worked for the company.
Yeah.
And it part of the draw to it was there's a romantic side to like, man, this thing has been around the block. And it still cooks better than any other cooker.
Yeah.
And we always chase these new fad, things. And, Buddy was telling me today, another Loco Grills, another company came out with a charcoal grill that's got a blower on it and like a thermostat and all this tech and everything. And I'm like, still cook circles around it. That's not me being prideful. That's just like, I got the thing that works. Like we can chase all the new stuff, but at some point, like going back to the old stuff that works.
That's one of the things I love about our grills is they're just big metal cooking machines, and that's it. There's nothing fancy about them. They're just what they are.
I just like playing with fire.
There you go.
And I'm literally to this day still kind of sad when I'm done cooking and it's time to eat.
Yeah,
I'd rather still be cooking.
Right. I mean, I think there's a draw. Not everyone's like that, but there's a draw to the playing with fire thing. It's why we go camping and we poke around in the fire the whole time. And like, I put a fire in the fireplace every morning and I'm moving logs around. And there's something kind of caveman.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
About it. It's just, I don't know. It's who we are.
Yep.
But you sometimes you can't go any better than what it used to be. The simple, the old ways.
That's right.
And we have this joke. We a bunch of buddies and I gun nuts. As we are, and you look at like a magazine on a gun, and it's been around for 200 years, and it's a metal box with a spring in it, and you can invent a million different things. You can put a man on the moon. You can have all the technology in the world. That firearm that the highest paid military contracts out there, and what powers that whole thing? Like, how does the ammunition get fed into the gun? It's a metal box with a spring in it.
Yep.
Because that's the most reliable thing.
That's it.
And, we kind of joke about Hasty Bake being like the magic metal box.
Yep.
like nothing fancy about it. Air
Nope.
comes in, air goes out. Smoke comes in, smoke goes out. Like that's all
Yeah.
it is. But it's neat seeing that history in play and seeing like all the different variations it's gone through and all that. So, man, I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You guys will find Jay day in and day out
On Facebook.
on Facebook under Jay Johnson,
Yeah.
SEN. Tag him. He likes to be tagged, I
Yeah.
think. If he doesn't like
Oh,
to be
yeah.
tagged, he'll just ignore you. But
Yeah.
I've never seen him do that yet. He'll get a sparkle in his eye and start chasing down the new rabbit
Yep.
trail.
I'm waiting for the guy that like I go, dude. I think that's about a 1980, late 70s, 80, and he goes, I bought that in 76. I've got a receipt, and I'll be like, oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Shing.
Yeah.
Excited about it.
It's like anytime someone has paperwork that can document a grill,
Yeah.
that's when I really make a note, and go, okay, we've got something there.
Right.
Now I can bounce stuff off.
I mean, it's detective work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just finding all the little pieces
it.
that go together. And I mean, maybe had we not had a fire, it wouldn't have been, that big of that big of a deal. But the fact that we're having to piece the history back together,
Yeah.
it makes these kind of conversations like way more special.
Yeah, buddy.
Cool.
So thanks again. People can follow you on Instagram. Is it Hasty Bake History all together?
Just one. And that was just a site to show all the old grills. Anytime I find an old grill, I talk to the people and they let me put a picture of their grill on there and it just so we have an example of every old grill that was made, really.
Right, for sure. I love it. And then obviously Facebook, Jay Johnson.
Yep.
Is where you'll track him down there.
Yep.
We'll have you on again. We'll
Yeah,
do some fun.
for
sure.
Keep your eye out. I'm sure Jay will be at Grill Fest this year.
Yeah.
Sporting the Angus, wherever we decide to have it. I
That's
think
right.
we damn near outgrew Hasty Bake.
In
Parking
year
lot
one.
in year one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been doing it for 20 years,
Right.
but the way we're doing it now, we're going to move somewhere, so we're working that out. But we'll have Jay out there with the Angus and floodlights and a big band, brass band, and the whole. It'll be great.
That's right.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for joining us. Thank you for putting up with all of us having sinus infections and trying to get through
That's
this awesome podcast.
Yeah.
If you guys like this, subscribe on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff. Follow us, Smoke Bake Sear Podcast on Facebook. We're going to continue to kind of pump these out. We're shooting for every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
Have some special interest stuff on, some fun stuff for y'all. If you guys got guests, things you want to hear, leave them in the comments here, post them up, send us a message on the Smoke Bake Sear Podcast site. We want to talk to you about it. But thank you for joining it, for being part of this community that we still think is like the coolest thing that we're all involved in ever.
Yep.
Which is why we do it and why we love it. So we will see you guys next time, and hope you do well. Be safe in this crazy weather out there.
In the crazy weather. I did just look a minute ago, and there's not one bit of snow.
Yeah, my daughters are going to be so sad.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome.
See you guys.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Bye.